The skies above Arenthal were not just dark, they were mourning, not with night, but with the memory of something older, heavier. Ash fell from the heavens like snow with a curse, gentle to the eye, but it sizzled against skin as though the world itself no longer welcomed the living. Silence clung to the ruins, the kind of silence that follows when the universe has screamed itself hoarse. Among the shattered bones of a temple, among the dead and forgotten, he stood. Not a hero, not a legend, just a man. Not tall, not strong. His armor was scuffed, bent, more testament to survival than valor. But there was something in his eyes, something that hadn't yet surrendered. They did not carry fear, not hatred, not defiance. They carried grace. His name was Alan Ward, and he was a medic, not chosen by rank or glory, not refined by command. He was sent to clean up the remains of war, to scan and record what the rest had left behind. They called him soft, useless, the one who still asked the names of the dead before scanning them. Into silence, but in the middle of that silent graveyard, he found her. She was not hidden. She lay as though placed there with intention. Skin like cracked silver glass, braids like woven night, a crown melted and fused to her temple like a cruel brand. Her limbs twisted, her breath shallow. They had said the queen of the Thalon was dead. They were wrong. Aelin saw her chest rise. He did not call for backup. He did not shout orders or activate protocols. He knelt. Ash stung his face, clung to his armor, but he ignored it. His scanners failed under the interference, so he reached out with the only thing left to him, his hand. Her skin was cold, not lifeless. It trembled. "You're alive," he whispered. She did not open her eyes, but tears, clear as crystal, slid from beneath bruised lids. And in that moment, everything he'd ever been told to do crumbled beneath the weight of one truth. She was afraid. So he lifted her, arms firm beneath a body still etched with legend. And when the soldiers saw, they froze, not out of reverence, but confusion. Whispers cracked like ice. The Frost Queen, the enemy, the destroyer. But he kept walking, and none dared stop him. The carrier Osiris 3 smelled of scorched metal and sterile regrets. Every step Aelin took through its corridors was followed by silence, not of peace, but of judgment. No one raised a voice. No one dared speak. But their eyes screamed the question no protocol dared ask. Why? She lay still now, this queen, on a cot too narrow for her legend. Machines hummed beside her, trying to make sense of her alien biology. Cooling gels coated her skin like a second shame. Her crown, pride from bone and ruin, sat untouched on a tray, a relic of war, a symbol stripped of meaning. He never left her side. The medics whispered. Command gave no official word, but their glances were executioners. Paralyzed, they said. No spinal response, no neural feedback, waste of resources. Let her die. He heard it all, and stayed anyway. He spoke into the silence, not expecting answers. Name's Aelin, he said. Terrace Station born. Fixed engines before I fix people. His voice was low, raw. Didn't think I'd end up here. With royalty. She didn't answer, but her brow moved, just slightly. It was enough. They think I'm a fool, he murmured. They see a monster in you. Maybe you were, maybe you weren't. Doesn't matter. You're hurting now. That's what I see. And I don't turn away from that. The door hissed open. A woman stepped through, sharp in uniform, eyes like broken mirrors. Commander Naraven, steel wrapped in skin. You disobeyed orders, she said without inflection. Aelin stood, unshaken. Yes, ma'am, you carried a threat aboard this vessel. You aided the enemy. Yes, ma'am, her stare was a blade. And if I ordered her dumped back onto the dirt to die alone, would you stop me? He didn't blink. Yes, ma'am, she didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Why? Aelin looked at the queen, not the legend, not the killer, just the broken thing on a cot that no one saw. Because if we only protect the ones we like, he said, voice steady, then we're no better than those we fight. The silence grew heavy, thick with unspoken past, and then, to his disbelief, Nara sighed. You're either the dumbest soldier I've ever met, she muttered, or the bravest. She turned. You've got 72 hours. If she doesn't wake, she's off this ship. The door sealed behind her, and in the stillness that followed, a hand moved, not twitching, not random. Her fingers reached for his, eyes opened, not cold, not regal, but full of something older than crowns, hope. Night fell in quiet blue shadows, soft and uninvited. The medbay lights dimmed to mimic stars, though none could reach that deep in space. Machines pulsed gently beside her, as if unsure whether to keep trying. Her silver skin, cracked and patched, shimmered beneath the artificial glow like a fractured moon. But the true light came from her eyes, open now, awake, and watching. Aelin sat beside her, still as stone. He didn't speak at first. It felt like waking a dream that dared not be disturbed. Her lips parted, dry and unsure. You stayed. He leaned in. Yeah, I stayed. She turned her face toward the cabinet's reflection toward herself. She saw not a queen, not a warrior, just the hollow vessel left behind. You should have left me, she said. Like the others. I don't leave people behind, he whispered. I'm not people, she said. He breathed deep, steadying something ancient in his chest. You are to me. Her tears came without fanfare, without shame, and with them came a shift in the air. The sensors blinked red just briefly, as though her grief had mass, a pulse too old for machines to comprehend. Aelin felt it more than saw it, a sadness that echoed in marrow, not power, pain. That wasn't you, was it? He asked gently. The war, the fire, the fear, that wasn't really you. Her jaw trembled. Her voice, when it came, cracked like old porcelain. They made me wear the crown, but I never gave the orders. I was a face, a cold one, something they could worship or fear, not someone they could forgive. Aelin listened, truly listened, and in her broken rhythm, he heard a song no one else had cared to learn. My world burned, she said. I watched them fall and I couldn't scream, couldn't cry. I was never allowed to feel. Now, the tears flowed freely. He took her hand, fragile, yes, but real. She didn't flinch. You're crying now, he said. Her fingers trembled in his grip. What's your name? He smiled faintly. Aelin Ward. And mine, she said, voice soft, almost sacred, is Lyra. Not the Frost Queen, not the Destroyer, just Lyra. And then the door opened again. An officer stepped in, helmet off, expression carved from stone. She had seen the feed. She had watched every second. Command knows she's awake, the officer said. They want her moved, now. Aelin stood slowly. She's not stable. Orders are orders. Lyra's grip locked around his hand. Please, she whispered. Don't let them take me. He faced the officer. Calm, firm. Tell command, he said. They'll have to come through me first. The officer hesitated. You really want to do this, Ward? He looked at Lyra. Yes, he said, because she finally used her voice. And I won't let anyone silence it again. The officer stared, then stepped back. The door closed, and for now, Lyra was safe. The ship groaned in its bones. Somewhere deep in its metal heart, the Osiris III drifted like a wounded beast orbiting a scarred world. And in a room meant for recovery but filled with uncertainty, Lyra breathed, shallow, steady, but alive. Aelin stayed close, as he always had. He brought her water with patient hands, adjusted her cot when the strain grew too heavy, guarded her from the medics who couldn't see past her history. Not one of them looked at her and saw a person. To them, she was a relic, dangerous, inconvenient, shameful. But he saw more. Every day, her voice found strength. Every word was a stone on the path she was building back toward herself. But not all stones led away from pain. That morning, her hand shook. The cup slipped. Broth spilled. I saw children scream, she said, eyes wide, unblinking. When the missiles fell, they screamed in my name. He caught the cup, took her hand, held it with the steadiness she no longer trusted in herself. You didn't, he said. I didn't stop it either. Her voice cracked, a fault line trembling in her soul. I just stood there, on that throne, a statue with blood on its silence. He knelt beside her. You were surviving, Lyra. When fear rules, we freeze. We become masks. We wear silence like armor. But now you're choosing something else. Her eyes searched his. Am I too late? Aelin didn't speak immediately. He let the truth arrive in its own time. It's never too late to matter, he said. But before the stillness could seal that moment, the alarms shattered it. A crimson glow flashed across the walls. The medbay vibrated with dread. Containment. Breach. The ship AI announced. Hangar Bay 2. Unauthorized vessel inbound. A medic burst in, face pale. Unknown ship just decloaked. Boarding parties at the bay doors. Aelin was already standing. Who? He asked, but Lyra knew before the words reached her lips. My father's guard, she whispered. The last of the royal fleet. They're here to rescue you. No, she said, voice cold as starlight. They're here to erase me. His pulse quickened. Why? Because I survived. And if the galaxy sees that I broke, the myth dies with me. He stepped toward the door. We won't let them reach you. But the door opened before he could act. Commander Nara entered, face bloodied, blaster drawn. They're inside, she barked. Security's stalling, but they won't hold long. Her eyes locked on Aelin. Then to Lyra. Is she worth it? She demanded. He didn't hesitate. She's not just worth it, he said. She's the reason we're different. We protect those no one else will. Nara stared. Time stretched. Then wordlessly she tossed him a keycard. Escape pod 4, she said. I'll hold them. Lyra tried to rise, but Aelin was already there. Hold on, he said, and then he lifted her, like before, like always, through the chaos, through fire, through doubt, because sometimes the softest hands carry the heaviest truths. The ship burned behind them. Metal screamed in agony, echoing through the Ferretti corridor like a warning from the soul of the vessel itself. Pipes burst. Smoke choked the air. Sirens wailed in panic, and the ship's bones trembled under the assault. But Aelin didn't falter. He carried Lyra in silence, step after purposeful step, not as a soldier, not as a savior, but as someone who refused to let her become a story others decided for her. Her head rested against his shoulder, her breathing shallow, but her eyes open now, watching the chaos with haunted calm. They'll kill you for this, she whispered. I know, he said. Why? His grip adjusted, careful, cradling her closer. Because you're alive, because they want that erased. And I won't let the world forget someone who's finally learning how to live. Another explosion rattled the corridor behind them. The AI's voice came again, unfeeling and clinical. Unauthorized breach. Evacuation in progress. All personnel report to survival pods. Aelin turned a corner just as a blast shattered a wall behind them. He shielded her with his body, flames biting at his armor, scorching his skin. Still, he pressed on. Then, a voice cut through the smoke. This way. Commander Nara emerged. From a side hatch, bleeding, staggering, her uniform torn and one hand clutching a detonator. Pod 4's down, she said, eyes blazing. Manual launch bay, off the books. Emergency class. Aelin didn't argue. Can you give us 2 minutes? No more, she said. Then her gaze shifted to Lyra. Good luck, Frost Queen, she said, not unkindly. Next time you wear a crown, make sure it's yours. She sealed the hatch behind them, turning back toward the fire with no promise of return. Aelin moved quickly now, not out of fear, but because he carried something precious. A soul, bruised but beating. A truth that no longer wanted to hide. I don't want more people to die for me, Lyra said, her voice shaking. He looked down. They're not dying for a queen, he said. They're standing for a chance. They reached the manual bay. Forgotten, dusty, nearly discarded. But the old pod inside still hummed with dormant purpose. Aelin kicked the panel. The door hissed open. He laid her gently into the seat, buckled her in, then climbed in beside her. The walls closed around them. Coordinates? The AI asked. He paused. Then typed them in numbers memorized long ago. A planet without flags. Reese Minor. A place to hide? She asked. He shook his head. A place to heal. Footsteps echoed outside. Blasters. Voices. Then a boom, and then another. Lyra gripped his hand, not from fear, but from trust, and just as the hatch began to crack, the pod launched, into blackness, into freedom. The stars stretched before them like threads of light. Behind them, war, but ahead? Something else. The pod drifted through the silence of space, wrapped in a hush that no battlefield could break. Behind them, the Osiris 3 bloomed into flame, a flower of fire swallowed by the void. But Aelin didn't look back. He kept his eyes on the woman beside him, her hand still wrapped tightly in his. Lyra's breath was steady now, no longer the rasp of someone fleeing death, but the rhythm of someone remembering how to live. You saved me, she whispered. He turned to her, eyes clear. No, he said. You saved yourself. I just reminded you that you were allowed to. She smiled at that. Small, real. A smile that had nothing to do with titles, armies, or myths. It was the smile of a soul no longer at war with itself. Hours passed. There was no conversation, just breath and heartbeat and the soft hum of life support. The stars outside did not judge. They simply watched. How long until we reach Reese Minor? She asked. 4 more hours, he replied. She turned her gaze to the window. saw her reflection. Not a queen, not a symbol, just a woman with scars, but alive. Will they come after us? Maybe, he said, but Reese Minor is quiet, off-grid. The people there don't ask for stories. They just offer food, shelter, kindness. She closed her eyes. That sounds like peace. It is, he said. Silence returned, but this time, it was soft, not fearful, not filled with dread. After a long pause, she spoke again. I used to dream of disappearing, she said. Even before the war, when I was a girl, I'd hide behind the palace pillars, hoping they'd forget about me, hoping I could stop being what they needed. Aelin turned to her. What did you want to be? She laughed quietly. A painter. He smiled. A queen who paints? She shook her head. A girl who paints. Then that's who you'll be now. She stared at him, unsure how he kept saying such impossible things like they were facts. How do you do that? She asked. Keep believing in people? His voice dropped, almost a confession. Because someone once believed in me, when I was just a medic with dirty hands, when I thought I didn't matter. They looked at me like I did. I never forgot. That? She squeezed his hand gently. Now I understand. Outside, the stars continued their slow dance, but somewhere ahead, a new one waited, and it was closer than they realized. Reese Minor appeared through the viewport like a memory made real. It was not grand, not golden, no towers, no thrones, no flags, just silver lakes, green hills, old stone, and twin suns rising like watchful eyes. It wasn't made for royalty. It was made for living. The pod descended, quiet, careful. As it landed near a village cradled by forests, Aelin carried Lyra once more, his arms steady not from strength, but from purpose. She wore no crown. She didn't need one. People gathered, silent but curious. They had no weapons, only hands stained with soil, eyes marked by time, and a peace that was not fragile. It was chosen. Aelin spoke plainly. This is Lyra. She needs healing, not just her body, her heart. An elder stepped forward. No ceremony, no question of lineage. Then she's come to the right place. They gave them shelter, food warm from fires, blankets woven with care, and silence that comforted. Instead of judged, days passed. Then weeks. Lyra's legs began to move, first a twitch, then a step, painful, slow, but certain. The kind of progress that doesn't need applause, only patience. Her hands remembered how to hold a brush again. Her strokes were shaky, like breath, at first light, but they carried color, memory, life, and through it all, Aelin remained, not her guard, not her savior, just her friend. One evening, as the violet dusk melted into twilight, she stood beside him beneath a sky that didn't know her name. You never asked what I've been painting, she said. He smiled. What are you painting? She turned the canvas toward him. It showed fire, ash, him carrying her, surrounded by ruin, but in his eyes, peace. Not the kind bought with silence, the kind given freely. You carried me, she said, when I couldn't move, when I couldn't speak. But more than that, you saw me. Tears gathered in his eyes. And now, he asked. She placed her hand gently in his. I carry myself. He stepped closer. And if they come again, looking for the queen? Her voice was calm, steady. They won't find her, she said. She died back there. What's left now is just Lyra. Then she leaned against him, not as royalty, not as legend, just as someone who had finally remembered how to be human again. The suns rose slowly over Reese Minor, casting gold across dew-soaked fields. The village stirred like a well-worn dream. No alarms, no urgency, only movement that honored the pace of peace. Inside a modest stone house near the water's edge, Lyra stood before a mirror. Her legs trembled, but they held. For the first time since the ruins, she stood alone. No braces, no aid, just herself. She wore a soft hand-woven dress, blue with silver threads, made by a seamstress who had never heard of queens or crowns. It didn't feel like a costume. It felt like truth. She touched her scars. They hadn't faded, but neither had her strength. Aelin entered, wiping grease from his fingers, tools still clipped to his belt from repairing a village satellite. He paused when he saw her. You're standing, he said. I am, she replied. No machines, no orders, just me. He approached slowly, reverently. You're glowing. It's the dress. No, he said. It's not. Outside, the wind danced through the trees. Children's laughter rippled near the lake. Life moved around them, simple, unafraid. and then a sound came. Not laughter, not wind, a low hum, mechanical, distant, wrong. Aelin turned. Above the treetops, a shadow moved sleek, metallic, deliberate. A ship, Lyra whispered. But not one of ours. He grabbed his communicator, patched into the village alarms, everyone inside, to the shelters. Now. The villagers obeyed. No panic, just trust. The ship descended without weapons fire. No legions spilled out. Just one figure stepped onto the field, a tall envoy, armored in the crest of the Central Alliance. No need for armies when one word carries the weight of many. That's a council envoy, Lyra said quietly. They only come when the decision is final. Aelin nodded. Then let's hear it. They walked together, slowly, shoulder to shoulder. When they reached the envoy, she removed her helmet, gray eyes, calm voice, honed by decades of decisions. Lyra of Thalon, she said. Aelin Ward. That's us, Aelin answered. We thought you were dead, the envoy said. I was, Lyra replied. But not anymore. The envoy hesitated. We intercepted the guards who came for you, the ones sent to erase your existence. They're gone. Lyra's face didn't flinch, and we saw the footage. From the Osiris, the security feed. You, Aelin, carrying her, protecting her. Not as a prize, not as a threat, but as a person. We saw mercy, and that changed everything. Aelin's throat tightened. What does that mean? The envoy looked at Lyra with something like reverence. It means we realized. Maybe we don't need another queen. Lyra's eyes narrowed, steady, unshaken. What do you want from me? The envoy stepped forward, but her tone softened. We want peace, not treaties, not chains. Peace that speaks in a voice the galaxy can trust. We believe that voice might be yours, not as a ruler, not as a weapon, but as someone who chose compassion over vengeance. Lyra didn't answer immediately. She turned to Aelin. His eyes held no command, no expectation, only truth. A quiet, unwavering truth. You don't owe them anything, he said gently. But if you say yes, it should be because you choose to, not because they ask. Lyra looked at the envoy. Her voice was calm, no longer brittle. I won't sit on a throne, she said. I won't lead with fear. I won't wear their titles. We don't want that, the envoy replied. We want someone who's walked through fire and didn't become ash. Silence stretched between them, full of memory, full of ache. Then Lyra nodded once. Then I'll help, she said. Not for them, not for power, for the ones still trapped in silence, for the ones who haven't yet been seen. The envoy offered a bow, not one of subservience, but of respect. We'll give you time, she said. When you're ready, we'll return. Then the ship lifted off. No fanfare, no echo of empire, just a whisper into the clouds. In the village, the people watched from a distance. When they saw Lyra's face still, calm, unburdened, they returned to their lives. Because peace is not the absence of war, it is the presence of trust. That night, beneath the quiet stars, Aelin and Lyra sat together once more. You could have said no, he murmured. I know, she said. But I said yes. Because of me? He asked. She shook her head. Not because of you. Because you showed me I was more than what they made me. She leaned against him, soft and certain. You carried me, she said. When I was broken, voiceless, afraid, you held on even when I didn't ask you to. He took her hand, fingers interlaced. And now? She looked at him, and the fire in her chest didn't burn, it warmed. Now, she said, I carry others. And the stars above them, for once, had nothing to warn against. They simply watched. The suns rose slowly, spilling gold over the edge of the lake, catching in the dew that clung like glass to every blade of grass. The village stirred as always, softly, without alarms, without urgency. There was no need to hurry in a place that understood stillness. Inside the little stone house, Lyra stood at the window. She no longer leaned on crutches or walls. Her hands no longer shook when she painted. Her breath no longer carried the weight of 1,000 deaths. Today, she was simply alive. A dress of soft blue hugged her frame, stitched by the seamstress who once mended fishermen's coats. It shimmered faintly with silver thread, not as a mark of status, but of care. Her scars remained, visible and proud, proof not of damage, but of survival. Aelin entered, wiping his hands with a rag, the smell of machine oil trailing him like a familiar echo. He stopped when he saw her standing fully on her own. You're glowing, he said. It's the dress. She smiled. No, he said. It's you. Outside, children laughed. Elders carried baskets. Wind moved gently, like it knew the soul of the place, and then, on the edge of hearing a sound, faint, mechanical, unwelcome, they stepped outside. Above the trees, a shimmer, not warships, not scouts, just one quiet vessel, watching. But they weren't afraid. The ship hovered, then turned away, fading into the horizon. Lyra exhaled. They're watching. Aelin nodded. Let them. We've got nothing to hide. They walked toward the fields together. Farmers waved. Painters nodded. No one saluted. That was what made it home. Later that evening, Lyra returned to her canvas. She painted not fire, not battle, not ruin, but hands, holding, lifting, healing, the soft strength no crown had ever taught her. As the light faded, Aelin joined her beneath the stars. Do you miss it? He asked. She didn't have to ask what. No, she said, because I was never meant to wear that crown. Not really. And if they ask you to lead again? She looked to the stars, not as if waiting for a sign, but as someone who'd learned to trust herself. I'll lead if they follow truth, she said. But never fear. He smiled. Then you'll lead well. She turned to him, took his hand, not out of weakness, not out of need, but because she wanted to, and somewhere far above, the stars blinked gently, not with prophecy, but with peace, because even in a galaxy built on power, it is grace that endures, and even the most feared can become a light when someone chooses to carry them home.